Welcome to Southern Maryland Perspectives. My name is Brad Gottfried, and I'm the president of the College of Southern Maryland. This is a show that features timely topics and guests from around the region. And today we're going to talk about a very, very timely topic, and that's bankruptcy. And with me today is an attorney, local attorney from Charles County, David Gormley. Good morning, David. How are you?
Good morning to you, sir.
Thank you so much for being on the show. There's so many things that are going on in the economy, and we hear people talking about bankruptcy, and we throw that term around. But I know the rules and regulations have changed, and I think it's always informative just to have a show talking about what bankruptcy is all about and how it has changed. But before we get into that, David, if you could tell the listeners a little bit about yourself, born and raised, education, things of that nature.
I was born and raised in Annapolis, Maryland. My dad worked for the Department of Defense for a number of years as an engineer, and growing up in Annapolis, went to law school at the University of Baltimore, and have been practicing law since 1992. Just about all but 4 of those years of practice have been in Charles County.
Mm-hmm. Now, do you specialize in bankruptcy?
Over the years, I've developed a lot of different areas of practice. Probably since one of our partners retired, I've taken over the bankruptcy practice for our firm, but I've always done a little bit of it in the past. But unfortunately, one of the good things about this bad economy for me is that I've been able to focus my practice almost completely on bankruptcy work recently.
So business is booming in terms of bankruptcies.
It is one of the strange things, yes.
Mm-hmm. Now, do you have a sense, figure-wise, whether it's region or even in your practice, the incidence of bankruptcy these days versus the good days, let's say the 2005, 2004, has it doubled, has it tripled? Do you have a sense of what's going on in that regard?
Easily doubled.
And do you see that increasing, or do you think it's just going to level off at this high level?
Unfortunately, I have started to take a rather bleak view in terms of the prospects of this economy and its effect on people having to file for bankruptcy. Just the housing market itself is something where I look at it, and when I'm advising clients whether to try to save a house or let a house go, I tell them to look at basically a 10-year time range now in terms of before they can really expect this market to turn around for the housing.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's what's so troubling. No one really knows exactly when we're going to come out of these doldrums. You know, people, I think they're optimistic, saying, oh, yeah, the middle of 2009 into 2010, things will get better, at least economically, and I think they're being very optimistic.
I hope they're right, because I'd much rather be doing real estate settlements than bankruptcies. But unfortunately, I think that, well, when someone's going to try to save their house, and if they're going to have to go through a bankruptcy, it's a very difficult process to get through. And if they're going to really stretch themselves thin to try to save a house, I don't want them 5 years from now to have something come up where they've got to sell it, and then they're selling it for a loss, and all they've done is basically run themselves into the ground to end up losing it in the end anyways.
Mm-hmm. Now, if you were to have a stereotype, a profile of a client coming into your office who's having financial difficulties, is it primarily because of the house, or is it credit card debt on top of that? What seems to be the major driver or drivers?
Well, it's, in terms of the stereotype, one of the ones that kills me is when I hear a pundit on TV kind of saying something about, oh, these people are just willy-nilly filing for bankruptcy. Now, I've yet to see that person. Believe me, the people who come to see me, they don't want to be there. I'm their last resort. And it's just a very diverse, it's amazing. It's not any one income level, education level. A lot of times it's people who, they've had an adjustable rate mortgage that has kicked in on them, or there's been a sickness, or someone's had a layoff. A lot of small business owners who, that their income's dropped. And although they've picked up a second job, working part-time, there's just not enough money out there to afford that mortgage.
And I guess a number of people, when they go into business as collateral, will put up their house. So when the economy goes bad, they lose their house as well, I take it. Well,
and, they have tapped into their credit cards to try to make ends meet. Kind of this year, the cycle of it has been, in the spring, I saw a lot of real estate agents. And they had tried to make it through the winter, and they thought things would turn around. And when That didn't turn around. They had to come see me because their credit cards were tapped out, and they were starting to fall behind on the mortgage. In the summer, it was a lot of construction people, dump truck drivers. They thought things would turn around. This summer came, and there wasn't any new work. So it's kind of and then this August, I started seeing a lot of people in the car industry. And interestingly enough, then all of a sudden you started hearing stories about even people with good credit couldn't get car loans, and I realized, oh, that's why I was seeing those people from the car dealerships.
Okay. Well, I did my part. I just bought a car. I don't know if that's going to make a difference. And they say, from what I'm hearing now, the next great crisis can be the credit card debt and people just over their heads in just buying all kinds of things and not being able to pay for it.
Well, now you're going to get me started. The Bankruptcy Reform Act of 2005, MB&A, the big credit card companies, really pushed that bill through.
Okay.
One of the things that I noticed was before that act, people had credit cards with a $10,000 credit limit. After that bill got passed, all of a sudden I started seeing people with $30,000 and $40,000 credit limits. So it sure seemed to me that this bill that they said they desperately needed because it was too easy for people to file, once they got it passed, they started lending more money.
And about when did this happen, this act?
2005.
Okay, so about the time that the mortgage market or the housing market was going through the roof and people getting mortgages they should not have gotten mortgages.
Well, people needed to, the other thing was people were investing. And, they had a friend. One of the things that people would do sometimes was a builder would sell the model home and rent it back. And people who did that in 2003, when the development was done, made a lot of money. Unfortunately, the people who started to do that in 2005, they would put down the down payment on a credit card thinking that they were only going to have that house for a year or two. Well, when that house was done and the development was done and they went to sell the house they had been renting to the builder, all of a sudden that $600,000 house was worth $400,000.
Well, what really bothers me as an educator is the number of young people who have really gotten themselves into trouble with credit card companies because the companies have been so liberal in giving out these cards and not really helping students, young people, understand the risks of running up a big credit card bill. And I don't know if there's any reform that you've seen, but when we have, we'll have some credit card companies trying to come onto our campus, and they're very aggressive. We will not let them transact any business on campus. We're trying to protect our students as much as possible. Obviously, credit cards are a convenience, but I just find that sometimes there's lots of abuses. Well,
in this day and age, they somewhat are a necessity. If you're going to travel, if you're going to rent a car, you're going to probably need a credit card. One of the reforms of the Bankruptcy Reform Act was to require credit counseling, but of course, by the time the person's taking that class, it's too late. They're getting ready to file for bankruptcy. The overextension of credit and people using it and going too far. But again, most of the people who are filing for bankruptcy aren't people who just willy-nilly ran up debt. They were running up debt at a point where they were trying to avoid some other calamity or crisis, and they hoped that the corner would turn at some point and they'd be able to pay it off.
So now, when do people really know they need to visit an attorney? I mean, is there this tipping point where they just say, I've got to talk to David?
A lot of times it's when they don't have any other options. Some of it's they bury their head in the sand, the kind of ostrich approach where they're ignoring all their problems. Unfortunately, sometimes it's when they've been served with papers where the credit card company's suing them, or the letter comes from the mortgage company that they're referring it to a lawyer for foreclosure.
I see.